I'll answer, and the first question is in the name of David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister, does he stand by all his statements?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes.
Supplementary question, David Shearer.
Thank you. Does he stand by his statement that, quote, first home buyers are a priority for the government? And if so, what is he doing to help Kiwis get into their first home?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, and the government is doing a number of things. Firstly, government has reached an accord with Auckland, which ensure that 39,000 new homes will be built over the next 3 years. The government has undertaking and is undertaking reform of the Resource Management Act, which will allow streamlining of the process. Mr. Speaker, the government is working and has been reforming the building and construction industry. And Mr. Speaker, interestingly enough, the government has managed to keep interest rates low through its fine economic management. If we go back and look at the time when the affordability index reached its highest point, in other words, the least affordable, was funnily enough in 2007 when it reached 107.3%. What we won't be doing, Mr. Speaker, is dreaming up some sort of policy on the seat of our pants that we can't explain.
Order, and the Prime Minister is not responsible for that matter. Supplementary question, David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If first home buyers are a priority for this government, will he exempt them from the loan to value ratios?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, firstly, I think it's important to understand that if LVR ratios are implemented or restrictions on them, that is a matter for the Reserve Bank, and they have the independent authority to do so. But I think it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
For first home buyers,
Order. Supplementary question, David Shearer.
Why is he allowing offshore speculators to buy houses ahead of Kiwi families?
That's right. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not allowing that, and I think it's worthy of noting that the rules haven't changed last time I looked any time soon. And between 1999, December to be precise, and November of 2008, I note that the national median sale price rose from 169,000 to 340,000.
This is a question that was asked. The member deserves an answer, and he can't possibly hear it with the level of barrage that's coming from my left-hand side.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so, if we look at that price increase, that was 100% in the time that the national government's been in office.
Order. I have a point of order from
Mr. Speaker. That answer is nowhere near the question that I asked.
Well, on this occasion it is, and I invite the member to reconsider his question. Why is the Prime Minister allowing offshore speculators to dominate the housing market, etc.? It was a very political question that was asked, and the Prime Minister is giving a political response to it. Further supplementary, David Shearer.
Mr. Speaker, is he aware that property companies are advertising Kiwi homes offshore with sales pitches like, why New Zealand property? No capital gains tax, no transfer duty, few barriers to purchasing. So what are you waiting for? Unquote. If so, why won't he put Kiwi home buyers ahead of offshore speculators?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, firstly, as I've said, actually the rules haven't changed. They were the very same rules that were in place when Labour was in office. But interestingly enough, I noted from downtown Seoul the policy suggestions of Mr. Shearer. So if that is the case, that offshore buyers are in fact the people that are driving the process, interestingly enough, the architect of that policy we all know is not the Labour Party caucus, but Tony Alexander of the BNZ. And this is what Tony Alexander says about the very problem that the member is actually saying is a problem. Quote, there is a growing visceral perception that Chinese buyers are snapping up New Zealand houses, leaving them empty, pushing up prices and making home ownership more difficult for Kiwis. The data does not support those claims.
Well,
point of order.
2 points, Mr. Speaker.
King.
First of all, answers are supposed to be to the point and succinct. And secondly, when you get to your feet, the Prime Minister is supposed to stop speaking twice. He has carried on speaking, and I'm waiting for you to rule on that.
Order. The Prime Minister was giving an answer. He was addressing and looking away from me. I don't think for any minute he deliberately carried on. I called him to order and he sat down, as I would expect any member to do when a point of order is called. But I invite the Labor members to consider the tone of the question that was asked. And it's a political question that was asked. It's likely to get a political answer back again. Further...
A point of order.
Point of order. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr. Speaker, since when did the New Zealand Parliament begin a convention that politicians cannot ask political questions? I mean, it is so nonsensical as to make this House look ridiculous, and I'd rather you did that by yourself, not us.
I can only assume the honourable member misheard me. I was saying that it was indeed a political question that was asked, and in asking a political question, it's likely to get a political response. Further supplementary question. Supplementary question, Louise Upston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary question to the Prime Minister. Has he seen any recent reports with alternative suggestions on housing?
Well, yes, I have.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I've seen the suggestion by the Labor Party that people offshore shouldn't be able to buy houses even if they were coming to New Zealand to work. But interesting enough, the architect of that policy said this, Mr. Tony Alexander: because I believe foreigners are not the driving force behind prices rising strongly, I do not believe such rules would have much impact on prices, especially as no one is able to provide data showing the Asian buyers that they see auctions are foreigners rather than Kiwis. Shimabel Jacob, he went into slightly more colourful language. Labor Party policy was, quote, a solution in search of a problem.
And the Prime Minister's not responsible for Labor Party policy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, David Shearer.
If he stands by his statement that, quote, the big thing that needs to get us through is supply, more homes need to be built, then how many new affordable homes will be built by this government?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the government doesn't build those houses with the exception of when they're built for Housing New Zealand. But I have no doubt as part of the 39,000 homes, a considerable number will be affordable. But this is what's interesting. The Labor Party's old policy was theoretically to build 300,000 homes. Now,
that was a well and truly answered question, sir.
On this occasion, I agree with David Shearer. Has the member got further supplementaries? Question number... Order. Question number 2, Dr. Russell Norman.